NZ Aerosports, Icarus Canopies, now Gyro. That's right, we've rebranded, and Gyro is our next generation. It honours our founder, as that's the name we knew him by, but Gyro also marks the start of a new chapter. And not to be biased, but it's going to be fucking epic. Long story short, we're more us than ever, so if you're new to the sport, or even a Sky God Ninja Turtle, welcome. I think our valiant leader Lucy, Gyro's daughter, says it best.
And we still got that fuck yeah attitude. Rebrand! Woo!
Rebrand woo indeed, Lucy. Anyway, head over to gyro.com for more info and get amongst you legends.
I was 19, broke, unemployed, and sold my girlfriend's canopy for drug money. So I thought I better sew her a new one. What a sentence, and what a story. This describes the humble yet outrageous beginnings of NZ Aerosports, the home of Icarus Canopies, in the words of our founder himself. From getting a paratrooper toy from his mom, watching parachutes at the DZ as a 6-year-old, jumping off the wharf with a parachute made from bed sheets, doing his first jump at 16, sewing his first canopy on a borrowed machine at 19, and starting to sell parachutes out of a garage in 1986, Paul Gyro Martin had an undying love for the sky. Our company started with one man with the wildest of spirits and a true blue sky dream, a renegade. In the time that Gyro created and ran the Icarus Canopies brand until he passed away in 2017, he pushed everything he had to its limits. We miss him, and we always will. Gyro is the next generation of NZ Aerosports. It honors our founder, of course, because it was the name we all knew him by, but Gyro the rebrand also marks the start of a new chapter, our next jump. Gyro is the space between sound and silence, art and science, chaos and calm. Gyro is a state of epic tranquility that transcends understanding. That moment, in the door, in free fall, mid-swoop, where nothing but the present exists. A perfect balance of euphoria and thrill. Gyro captures our passion for flying and our commitment to designing break-the-fucking-rules canopies that deliver pilots pure, wild flight. Hey gang, so I got a new book out. It's called The Upside of Fear, and it's exactly what you think it's about. It's about the good side of, well, getting scared. In it, we talk not only about the science and biology behind fear, but the psychology as well. And it's not just coming from me, it's coming from some of the best in the sport. Omar Alhigelan, Jeff Provenzano, Maxine Tate, and so many more have contributed their sometimes terrifying stories to the book to help you overcome your fear. So head to the lunaticfringepodcast.com. You're going to find the link to the book there, as well as the other books. It's available in ebook, paperback, hardback, and audiobook right now.
Coming straight from the cockpit, it's another episode of Lunatic Fringe with the fucking pilot.
Ready, set, go! Back in the can for another edition of the Lunatic Fringe podcast with a friendly face we've seen once before. Who the fuck are you, and what do you do?
Matt Jaskol, and I do a lot of things: race car driving, skydiving, and a lot of race car coaching, a little bit of stunt driving, and a few other things sprinkled in between.
So a little shake and bake everywhere.
Yeah, a little shake and bake, baby.
Dude, man, I'll tell you what, out of all the jumpers I know that work quite a bit in skydiving, you are the busiest motherfucker outside of skydiving that I know.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? And of course, it's all relative, right? People like us, we feel like losers, if I even dare say sometimes, if you're not doing something. But I constantly have to remind myself, like, dude, just chill, man. Like, I'm on the road 250 days a year, traveling, doing a lot of stuff. And then when I'm home, I feel like, oh man, I'm just sitting around. What am I doing?
It's hard, right? Like as soon as you sit down and you're like, all right, I'm going to make myself be lazy today. And you make it till about 1 o'clock in the afternoon and you're like, I'm such a fucking slug. And you end up in the gym beating the shit out of yourself or doing something because you can't sit still.
Are you watching me? What are you saying? That was exactly my day yesterday.
Yeah, man. I do the same thing because I retired a little over a year ago from flying full time, and so I tell myself, no, man, enjoy it. You don't have to do shit today. Today's a day off from the gym. You're not going to do anything. Nah, man. There's no such thing as a day off.
Yeah, true. And it's been kind of a slow year this year. And so there has been a little bit more downtime. But then of course I've just been taking care of like the family stuff, like just getting older, right? Like I'm taking care of like family, a little bit of property and trying to remodel my mom's bathroom and just stuff like that. And
Nice.
actually, which I'm happy to do because it gives me anxiety, like when project little things aren't finished or things are getting old and need to be taken care of. So I have been a little slower than most years. It's been slow. I don't care what work you're in. I don't care whether it's motorsports, skydiving, automotive, Hollywood. It seems like everybody's kind of said the same thing. It's just a little slower than everybody was expecting or hoping in the last couple of years. And
Sure.
so I've been taking advantage of that a little bit and just trying to get some work done around home.
So I think you're officially an old man this year, aren't you?
Shit, dude, I knew you were gonna bring that up. I shouldn't have told you. I shouldn't have told you when we first chatted. But yes, I am.
Fucking the big 4-0, man. How's it feel?
Yeah. A little on. I mean, honestly, okay, just like candid, couple of bros talking. Little stressed. Not doesn't feel awesome. I mean, 30 actually was pretty rad. Like I remember being upset or nervous about 30, and some people out there would understand, especially motorsports people. Like the older you get, man, your window's closing, and it's like you're constantly told, like, oh man, your career's almost over. You're not going to be doing much. So like coming up on 30 when I was working at the Speedway and just working at a racing school, I was really kind of down. I was depressed, which we'll talk. That's what led me into skydiving, but and then 30 was rad. 30 was some of the best years of my life. It was cool. But now approaching 40, I'm trying to have that same mentality of like, it's going to be cool, but it is tough. It's like, you're getting in those years for me, as far as like motorsports go. And, there's not going to be a lot more opportunities left, but I'm excited still for what the next chapter in life is going to bring,
Sure. It's weird because 36, oddly enough, was a much harder year for me than 40.
Oh, okay. That's weird.
40, I was like, I'm still doing this shit. I'm fucking 40 years old and I'm still doing this shit. Cause I'm sure you're the same, man. I remember looking at 40-year-olds when it was around the time my dad was turning 40 and they were fucking old.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, things are different. Like when my dad turned 40, I was scared. I was racing go-karts and I was like, oh my God, my dad's an old man. And now I'm turning 40 and I do get like, dude, I go through all the emotional roller coaster. I don't have kids. I'm not married. I constantly do the fucking, am I doing the right thing in life? What have I done? Have I fucked up? I guess I'm going through that a process of emotion of like, man, have I done okay in life? Where am I at? I can say it very honestly. I'm not where I want to be in life. Things didn't quite work out the way I worked really hard for, but I do constantly stop and look at, man, I've accomplished a lot. I've done a lot of crazy stuff. I've done a lot of amazing things. And I got to remember to be proud of myself for what I've accomplished.
Sure.
And know that there's still a long road ahead of me, hopefully. So,
well, and it'll either make you feel better or worse, but I just turned 55 and I feel exactly the same fucking way.
yeah, so no bullshit. I look at you, dude. No, and I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. If I can be like you and looking as cool and looking young and fit in another 15 years, I'll be stoked, man. Like,
And still waking up wondering if you're fucking yourself up or not.
Right. Okay, so I still have that. Thank you for affirming that. I'll still have those feelings, but man, there's a lot I still want to try to accomplish and want to try to do, and yeah, man. So looking at somebody like you and knowing about your life and background, genuinely, I'm like, dude, if I can be like you in 15 years, I'll be stoked. I'll be happy.
Well, and I'll tell you what, it's funny too, because I've got people that are 15, 20 years older than me, and I'm thinking the exact same thing. And the one thing we all have in common is for some reason we jump out of fucking planes.
Yeah, it's weird. That's cool. Good.
So
like
speaking of, you already kind of allayed to how you got started, but we know you were racing cars. Tell us a brief bit about that, and then how that led you to skydiving.
Yeah. So for those that didn't see our previous podcast that we've done together, so my story, just to, again, even quicker than what we've probably gotten deeper into before, because hopefully people go back and see some of the first
Absolutely.
episode we've done. I was a young racing driver. I was only 10 years old. Started out in go-kart racing. Was coming up through the ranks. Got a scholarship with the Skip Barber Racing School, which was pretty well known. and I raced in that championship. And from there, I was only about 16, going on like 17 years old. Red Bull was doing their American Formula One driver search during that era, trying to get an American back in Formula One. And I got chosen for that program. I was going through that. I was teammates with guys like Scott Speed and some other, top American drivers, and did that program, did pretty well, and, won races and did things I was supposed to do. But, again, racing and the world of motorsports and politics didn't work out. And but still continued racing until the economic collapse in 2008. That kind of set me back. It retired a lot of drivers. I was still a young man in my 20s, but there was no real funding, no sponsorship. Family wasn't doing so well after the economic collapse. Vegas was hit exceptionally hard during that time. House was in foreclosure, family was losing everything. So I was just working. And when you're a young racing driver who's not racing, you're just trying to find trying to find work with what you know how to do. So it was becoming a racing instructor more and more. And then, a long journey, racing up and down. And sometimes I'd be racing, sometimes I wouldn't. But I came across a company called Dream Racing here in Las Vegas, which is like the premier driving experience, exotic cars, race cars, things like that. And was doing that program for years and became their chief instructor for quite a while. And it was one of the guys that I worked with, was with them side by side every day, who was also like one of the owners of the company. And he was this heli pilot, wingsuiter, fucking crazy son of a bitch. And I'd go on adventures with them and hang out. And again, I think I remember telling you this, like the first guys I ever met before I was a skydiver. So this is 2013. I'm not even 30 yet. I'm coming up on 30. And I go on this little adventure in Page, Arizona, and I'm watching a guy named Scotty Bob. I'm watching a guy named Ian Mitchard. I'm watching Matt Froelich, Matt Keeney, who's no longer with us. And so I'm watching some of these fucking wild guys jump off cliffs, and I was just terrified. And it wouldn't even be until almost a year later that finally I got pushed to go do a tandem, and the rest is history after that.
Where was that first tandem?
Here in Las Vegas. Eddie Carroll was running Vegas Extreme. So Jace Ramsey was my TI, who's legend, and he was actually he was my instructor. He still works. It's now Go Jump Vegas, which I'm now an instructor at, and is my side hobby, my side job. Doing tandems and outside video, and it's cool because not everybody that were around, some of the first guys, but some of the first guys that were with me on the plane are still around. And the guy I called him a kid at the time, but the guy that taught me how to pack parachutes, he wasn't even a skydiver when I was. Now he's got 3 times more jumps than I do as a TI, and yeah, it's cool, man. I kind of like stuff like that. So
it's crazy. It's crazy. Well, and especially in a town like Las Vegas, because I worked, with the exception of the original North Las Vegas, I worked to some degree at every fucking drop zone that was there in the time that I was there. Because I started working, the first video jump I ever did was with Outlaw in Gene, which was the Molars out there.
Yeah. And
Then
I talk to Brian all the time.
Oh yeah. And so I went from that to working for Skydive Las Vegas, and then it was Gravity Zone in Gene, and that closed down. And then it was Eddie Carroll and Dale Hinton that ran Vegas Extreme. I fucking did all the rack cards for them and shit. So it's so great to hear people that came up there and actually really stuck with it and are giving back to it still there.
Yeah, man, it's still, luckily it's still cranking, Go Jumps, running a pretty good operation. And, you still have Skydive Las Vegas, which isn't at Boulder City anymore. They're with us at Gene, which is, like basically right near State Line for those.
Are they really?
Know. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, dude.
Holy
so
shit.
Skydive Las Vegas is not, this has been for a couple of years now. They're not doing so well. They don't have a big plane anymore. It's just Morrow and like one other instructor, a little 182. And I don't know how they're still operating. They're there when we're there, but they're doing a few loads a day. And
did they just have airport access stuff in Boulder City? Because I heard somewhere that might have been an issue.
Dude, it's like any other political. It's like, skydiving's worse than motorsports possibly with the BS and the rumors and stuff.
Sure.
It depends on who you ask, because even I ask out of curiosity. I just ask out of like, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a businessman. Like I like to know things. I like to understand how things work. So when I ask questions, I don't give a shit about I don't really give a shit about any drama or bullshit. I just want to know like the inner workings or how it works. So I was like, hey, why are they here? Why aren't they in Boulder City anymore? Well, the rumor always was for many, many years, even when I first was a baby skydiver a decade ago, was that and the reason why nobody was allowed to jump in Boulder City was there was no fun jumpers allowed because the rumor I always heard was that Boulder City doesn't really want skydiving here, and they're looking for any reason to shut it down. And so apparently, supposedly, Boulder City finally did that. They shut down skydiving, and the owner of Skydive Las Vegas gets kicked out and comes down to Gene. But then I talked to somebody else. They go, oh, it was because he was a piece of work. Nobody wanted to deal with him, so that's why he got kicked out of Boulder City. And now, so you hear so much BS back and forth, man. Like, and now I hear like Boulder City might open back up, and who knows, man.
Well, and Skydive Las Vegas was my home drop zone. I mean, that's where I did my first tandem. That's where I learned how to skydive. That was the first proper skydiving gig that I ever had. So it's funny to hear all that stuff. And then of course you move to Gene, which is, I mean, it's a 45-minute drive, but it's a 10-minute flight away from Skydive Las Vegas. I mean, it's quite close. But the drama that surrounded Gene, even in the years that I was there and shortly after, I mean, without going into names, DZOs pretending to be police officers driving up and down the highway. I mean, Lord, for such a small skydiving community and a tandem-oriented skydiving community, that place has had more than its fair share of drama.
Dude, I've actually watched some of it as a young man coming in and out, and it's just like you're laughing. There's been days where I walked in and again, without naming names, but like some gnarly dramas going down, and there was this one scene where I literally like walked my bag in through the door, and fuck it, I'll just say it. Eddie Carroll's screaming and yelling at somebody. And he always liked me because I brought him tandems. He always liked me because I brought him more. I brought so many fucking. He knew the number. It was like over 150 people in a 12-month period that I brought because I knew a lot of. Been in Vegas for over 30 years. I know a lot of people, and of course, as a new skydiver, I was just like fucking pushing constantly. Facebook, everybody come skydive because I got a free skydive for every person I brought. So it paid for half my skydiving career. So I like anytime I was there, as much as Eddie was intense and he'd have good days and bad days, he was always fine with me because he knew I brought him money. I brought him money and I paid, even though he didn't really like fun jumpers. I had a good relationship with him. But I opened the back door and I'm just smiling. I'm excited to go do some jumps. And I opened the door, I rolled my bag, I got my bag behind me, and he's like, oh, he's going off on somebody, and he looks at me and he goes, "You're not fucking jumping today, mate." And I just went, "Copy that," and then just turned around and went out the door and didn't even ask why, and just loaded my bag up and drove away, man. So there was multiple days some shit like that happened,
Oh yeah, man. Shit, the last real big piece of drama I had in that drop zone attached to Eddie Carroll, I was actually working for him and Dale, and we had a war going on with the other drop zone that was on the same airfield, literally on the other side of just a partition in the room. I mean, literally you can hear each other talking through the movable wall.
Sin City is what Sin City is what, because it was still happening when I became a skydiver, and it was called Sin City Skydive, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we had this war going on, and their pilot was like doing everything that he could to just try and ruin everybody's lives. And I ended up in a fucking fight with him in the bathroom out there. Like restraining orders and all kinds of shit because fists were getting thrown in the toilet.
That's awesome. See, I miss those days. Things are a little bit tame in Gene lately. Things are more politically correct, and it's like a little bit more corporate.
I'd like to think I wouldn't get in a fight in a toilet ever again, but I mean, who knows?
You never know.
So the jumping starts for you in Vegas, and a lot of driving stuff is happening for you in Vegas, but you still will go down as probably the only person I have ever spoken to, ever met, or know of that's actually driven a NASCAR car on top of another car. So you've had more than just excitement on drop zones. You've done some shit, man.
Yeah, I guess so, man. Yeah, so like it's such a wild, weird, complex story as always, like, to get into how motorsports works and how things happen. But yeah, so like I become a skydiver in 2014, and I'm not racing. I'm 30 years old, and I'm racing like once or twice a year just to kind of stay relevant and kind of stay out there and stuff. And obviously it's still my passion, but it's how I make a living per se. Like I'm coaching drivers, I'm mentoring drivers. You know, I even have the distinct honor of mentoring an Indy 500 champion from the time he was a young man all the way through go-karts, and then was with him when he won the 500 in 2016, Alexander Rossi. So yeah, I mean, I've done my fair share. You know, I'd like to think I've done my fair share of like coaching, mentoring, and racing and motorsports. And but you know, still, again, I was genuinely just straight up depressed not to be in a race car, you know, not doing what I devoted my whole life to. And skydiving was my outlet. You know, it wasn't about adrenaline, as we've talked about before. It was about just something to apply myself to, and it was that drug that, you know, the dopamine is what it was, really, not adrenaline per se. You know, I was traveling, I was meeting new people, I was learning something that was difficult. Skydiving, to me, to be good at is difficult, obviously. And so, yeah, man, it was just, it changed my life, like it does for a lot of people who are listening to this, and everybody's got a journey and stuff. And so skydiving filled the void in my life, plain and simple. It filled that void that I had not racing. But I was still, even though I was pursuing skydiving and traveling and stuff like that, I was always still trying to put some money together, sponsorship. I was always trying to get back in a race car. And it wasn't until I did this crazy jungle experience, surviving in a jungle on the TV show Castaways, and came out of that show, and some people started reaching out to me, and kind of my story kind of got told a little bit. And it was a good racing friend, one of my best friends. He's a race car driver now, and he reached out to me and said, "Hey man, I'd love to help you out." So he helped me. He kind of paid for me to get back into a sports car in a lower level, kind of like Daytona 24-hour, but like even lower. It's like the precursor to the Daytona 24 hours. It's a 25-hour race in California that some, you know, like lower level teams do to prep for Daytona, and it's low budget, low cost. And he got me in the car for free. He got me there just to kind of like get me back in a car. And so that was 2018. 2019, I'm working again. I have a chance to get back into a race car full time, like a sports car Lamborghini program. Fucking pandemic hits, and honestly, I almost lose my shit. I literally, when it happened, I was getting ready to go racing in a professional Lamborghini race car championship with what you call a gentleman driver, the guy that's paying the bill, and we would race pro-am. And it would be a good salary, man. I'd probably make like 50 grand, 60 grand for only racing like 8 races.
Sure.
You know, coaching him. He was a cool story, really cool guy. He's the heir to Minute Maid orange juice. So it's like, that's a whole funny story. Like, so anyway, so I'm mentoring, coaching this guy. He's in his like later 50s, wants to go racing for fun. And so we're already done. He signed the contract. He bought the car. It's all through Dream Racing. And then the pandemic hits. That shuts down, and I'm just like, oh my God. So that just goes out the window. And so we all go through the pandemic. And actually the pandemic was a great time for me. When the world opened up, I was traveling, I was working at go-kart, wrenching, coaching, mentoring, doing a little bit of driving, skydiving, doing tandems. I got my tandem rating like in 2018 or 19. And then when the pandemic hit, after the world opened up later in 2020, I'm doing tandems and getting my numbers up. I'm doing okay. I'm having a good time. I'm helping my friend Julio from Liquid Sky. I'm out in Burbank helping him out. So I'm doing everything's cool. And then in 2021, out of fucking nowhere, a guy that I've known for 20 years, I met him when I was a go-kart racing kid. I met, over 20 years now. Met him when I was like 15 years old, so like the early 2000s. He started a auto parts company, kind of like an Amazon of auto parts, like online, called Auto Parts for Less. And he had created a lift kit company, and he was creating the bigger company, the Auto Parts for Less company. He comes to me and goes, "Hey man, I've always believed in you. I've always loved you, man. I know I believe in your ability. It's my dream to be in NASCAR, to be a sponsor in NASCAR, and I want you to drive for me." And so you can't just go to NASCAR and just get in a race car. It doesn't work that way. You can't do that. It doesn't matter how much money you have, actually. You have to still go through like an approval process.
Sure.
And so we go to the NASCAR Vegas race, March 2021. And we meet with a team, a low budget team. We don't have a lot of budget. And we get on a phone call with NASCAR. It was actually Brett Bodine, pretty famous name in NASCAR, Jeff Bodine's brother. Yep. So Brett Bodine is in charge of driver approvals. So we get on the phone with him, and he's like, "Matt Jaskol, who? What?" He was like, "What do you want to do?" And so he's like, "Yeah, I think I've heard of you. I'll look you up." So we're trying to ask for approval. So the way NASCAR works is, if you're you're an old driver, young driver, you have a racing background, and you want to race in NASCAR, you have to get approved, and you can only get approved for usually either a road course first or one of the small ovals, like a half mile. They're not going to just fucking let you go to Daytona, at 200 plus miles an hour and go wreck everybody. So you got to start at one of the easier, road course or an oval, a small oval, like a half mile. And there's only a couple half miles. There's only Martinsville or like Bristol. They won't even let you do because the high bank crazy oval. So it's kind of hard to get approval sometimes. And so Martinsville was coming up in just a few weeks. I have not been, mind you, in a professional race car in a decade. I did the one sports car race in 2019 before the pandemic. I'm racing a go-kart once a year at a big go-kart race. I haven't been in a car. And so Brett Bodine even asks, he goes, when was the last time you were in a stock car? And I was like, 10 years ago, maybe more. And he goes, what have you been doing lately? I was like, not a lot. So we're trying to get approval. And so he goes, well, give me some references. So I give him some really big names, like big names in motorsports, all the way down to Mario Andretti even. I gave that name. So I give a bunch of big names in motorsports, team owners, things like that, some famous race car drivers. And I don't know who he contacts, but he gets a hold of us a few days later and he goes, all right, man, you got some good contacts. I'll tell you that. So I don't know who he called. He didn't tell me, but he just goes, I'll approve for you to do Martinsville. And so, dude, I went from fucking 0 to NASCAR in like 2 weeks, and dude, I was shitting even though Martinsville's a slow track, it's not a lot of risk, it's not crazy fast or anything. Dude, I was practically shitting myself before my first NASCAR race. Not for any other reason. A lot of athletes would understand. For the reason of you just don't want to fuck up.
Sure.
You don't want to go. You don't want to look like an idiot. You don't want to go out there and put it in the wall or get wrecked or be really slow. Just be totally off the pace.
Sure.
That's what makes you scared and what makes you nervous. At least for me. And we rocked it, dude. It was COVID rules, of course. It was 2021 NASCAR. No practice, no qualifying allowed. Kind of a weird thing. So yeah, of course. So now I'm hopping into a NASCAR. I've never been in this car, dude. I've never fucking started the engine. And it's like, it's go time, baby. Here we go. We're getting in the race car. I'm starting dead last, 40th. Have not been in, and they're bolting me in. They're buckling me in. The NASCAR's coming. 1 minute. You're like, shit. I'm literally, and I'm getting on the radio check. And spotter's like, all good. I'm like, what buttons do I turn on? Like there's switches everywhere. And they're like, turn these on, turn those fans on. Okay, let's go. And that was my first NASCAR race. And I started 40th and finished 23rd.
Jesus Christ, man.
It was a good fucking day, actually. It was cool, yeah.
That's like finishing AFF a decade ago, showing up at the drop zone and they hand you a fucking Leia.
Yeah, so no, genuine. So that's good for Scott. Again, skydivers. They're sport oriented, motorsports fans. It would be the equivalent of how I used to tell people was I used to say it like piloting. Imagine you flew a 182 a few times, and maybe some other little one single engine sport plane, little acrobatic plane a decade ago, and now you have to bolt in an F-16 and go right now. And you're like, what the fuck, dude? I don't, yeah, I flew a little bit. What's Russell, what's that guy's name from Independence Day? He's like, yeah, I'm
yeah.
I'm a pilot. That's kind of how I felt getting in the car. Like, yeah, I'm a pilot. I got this.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you what, though, your previous experience in cars, and then especially because you were not new by that time in skydiving, but an established skydiver by that point, you've kind of learned how to zoom in, right? And just focus on, I mean, I suppose in a NASCAR, it's not the first 10 feet in front of you, it's the 200 feet in front of you. Yeah. But I would imagine that had to help a lot. Like, okay, I'm driving now, I'm going to shit my pants later.
Yeah. I mean, listen, everything I've done, not to sound cliche, it led me to that moment. And I have a, belief in my ability. I was considered one of the best in North America, as a young man coming up through the ranks. So I know I have the ability to do it, but it's still like, if I was just going out there by myself, I know I can go drive the car pretty quick, but you're around 40 other cars,
sure.
And you're in a lower budget car. You're not in a really great car. And you don't even know what the brakes are going to do going into turn one. You don't know how much speed can you roll through turn one without spinning out and crashing the car and looking like an idiot. Right. So that's where you get the nerves of like, shit. And the nerves of like, everybody's expecting you to perform, even though it's like, you're just hopping in this thing, you got to go. people are still going to be like, well, if you suck, it doesn't look good, right? So that's where all the nerves come in. You're just like, ah, man, I gotta I gotta do okay. I gotta do all
Sure.
right, and I
Well, and I
better
would
not crash
imagine
this thing.
you're also probably under a tremendous amount of pressure because you've got someone that's reached out to you and a friend of yours that's going out of their way to put you in the seat.
Yep.
So that's got to be a lot of pressure too. And of course, for somebody like me or any, armchair drivers out there, I watch an F1 race and I'm like,
I can do
yeah,
that. That's easy.
I can
And people,
handle. I've cornered my fucking Mercedes around a fucking tight corner before. I could do that shit. And of course, the reality is there's not a chance in hell
yeah,
that the average Joe can go out and do that shit.
yeah.
But I mean, you've got all that training, and so I can still imagine all the pressure and all the nerves that have got to be on you, and then to be just thrown into it. Either you're going to do really well like you did, or you're going to completely crumble.
Yep, true. And the way it works is, yes, you made a really good point that I'd like for people who might be curious. So to race in NASCAR in the Xfinity series, so I wasn't even racing in the Cup series on Sunday. I'm racing Xfinity, which is one level below. It's truck, Xfinity, Cup. Those are the three professional levels of NASCAR. It's usually traditionally, Friday is the truck series, Saturday is the Xfinity, Cup on Sunday, but you're racing against a lot of the same Cup drivers. You're racing against the Cup teams in the Xfinity series. It's all pretty tough, and so the money, people ask. So to race with a top level Xfinity team costs about $100,000 per race, and it's just mind blowing. I don't even know where some of the people come up with this money other than like the rich kids and the family money. So my sponsor was paying about 30 grand a race. That's a lot of fucking money.
Yeah.
$30,000 per race. He was writing a check for me to go get in this race car just because he wanted to be in NASCAR and wanted to advertise and put his name out there. And so that it's crazy to think that's a low budget team. That's a low budget, slower car, not a lot of budget, and it's $30,000 a race, which is disgusting. It's absurd. Racing is absurd when it comes to that kind of budget.
I mean, it kind of puts it into perspective because especially nowadays, I bitch about the cost of skydiving and skydiving equipment and all that stuff. I mean, because I built my entire first rig, including the AAD, for about $2,500.
Yeah.
That is a deposit on a container now.
Yeah, a deposit. Yes. Or just a container, exactly. Just nothing else in it, just the container. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and a used one at that, And
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
so I bitch about that, but then I see the numbers bandied about, and I'm sure you watch it as well. I got hooked on the Drive to Survive, the F1 series, which was a sport that didn't attract me before, but now has because they put a bit more context to it. Right up until you see the math, and you're like, oh. Yeah, like specifically with racing, and speaking about Daniel Ricciardo, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, he might lose his seat," and I felt bummed because he's like this super cool guy, and he comes off really nice, and then I'm like, "Oh, that's a bummer," and I Googled Daniel Ricciardo net worth. 35 million. Oh, fuck that guy.
I don't feel that bad.
I don't give a fuck if that guy loses. Fuck that guy.
And he's only like 30. He's younger. He's fucking younger than me. He's only like 35 or something like that.
Yeah. So yes, I mean the numbers that are involved when it comes to auto racing are just insane. Well, in anything in automotive, it's a lot like skydiving, right? We picked, especially you picked two completely different areas that you're just fucked in because you're so pigeonholed, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how does it get worse than that? Aviation or fucking auto motorsports? Fuck me.
Well, actually, funny enough, the reason I kind of went down the road of skydiving, I was flying. So, I was flying a nice brand new 172 from this flight school, G1000 glass cockpit, because it is actually natural progression. There's a lot of there's this young race car driver who's doing great. He's younger than me. He was part of the Red Bull program like me back in the day. He was a winning sports car driver for factory BMW team, and he quit because he got a job with NetJets. He was a pilot, and so now he took a job with Netflix, and he's walking away from racing. And I have a lot of respect for that. But anyways, I was flying a 172, had about 60 hours, getting ready for my check ride. and I was flying around. I have video, man. I had a GoPro. I'm flying around Red Rock here in Vegas.
Yep.
It's funny because I have the video of the epiphany moment where I'm like flying around. I just put the camera up just so I could have cool footage of me flying, and I'm looking around, and I actually remember looking, going, I'm looking around. I looked at the Hobbs meter. I looked at my watch, and I was like, fuck, there's fucking $300. I was like, what am I doing? I'm not going to I don't have the money to go commercial. I'm not gonna, I love aviation. I'm a total aviation nerd. I'd love to go commercial. I was like, what am I doing? I don't fucking have the money for this shit. I landed the plane, and my check ride kept getting canceled because of weather. The plane was broken, whatever. And I walked away and became a skydiver. And because I was like, well, this is cool. This is cheaper. I can still be in planes. I can jump out of them. And so that was kind of the progression of getting into skydiving.
Well, and there's so very few ways to get into aviation or motorsports without spending an incredible fortune. Like I've recently, over the last few months, fallen down a YouTube rabbit hole watching a guy by the name of Matt Armstrong, a British guy that rebuilds crashed supercars.
Okay.
And it's the only way I've ever seen. Like, this guy is buying cars that are $500,000 new, but he's buying them for 80 grand, and then like eBaying parts and figuring out how to rebuild these supercars by watching YouTube videos.
Damn.
Yeah, but it's fucking cool. But that's the exception to the rule. That's the only way you get into that shit, is it's so expensive.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like I said, I mean, again, I'm not shy. Listen, there's talented drivers out there who have made it on nothing. There's not very many, but there's a few. But dude, most of the field out there is made up of a lot of nepotism. You know, I'm racing against the owner of the Herps gas stations. If you live in the West Coast or Vegas or anywhere, even in California, you know, you've heard of terrible Herps. So they have like 600 gas stations nationwide. I'm racing against that kid. I was racing against Ty Gibbs, Joe Gibbs' fucking grandkid. You know, I'm racing against Austin Cindric. His father is the president of Penske Motors, the biggest motorsports operation in the world. You know, it's like those are the kind of guys I'm racing against, and it's hard, man. It's tough. It's a little bit disheartening at times, you know, when you're just doing everything you can, and you're sometimes outperforming these guys in worse equipment, you know, and it is what it is, man. But,
well, I mean, the exceptions to the rule are like the Lewis Hamiltons, who came from relatively nothing and made it, but the status quo are the guys that were born and raised in fucking Monaco.
Yeah, I love when like Charles Leclerc, if you're a big Formula One fan,
Monaco.
Great guy. Seems like I've never actually met him. Seems like a great kid, super nice and humble. It looks like fucking phenomenal driver, but he came from money. He had a lot of fucking money. He was, you know, it's like people were like, oh no, he didn't come from much. Bullshit, you know.
Sure.
Or look at Lance Stroll. If you're a Formula One fan, his father owns the fucking team. You know, it's like these are the kind of guys that you're up against, man.
Yeah. Well, and the polar opposite to that, of course, is the other sport that you chose, which is skydiving, of course, because your average skydiver doesn't come from money. Your average skydiver doesn't have money. And
I know.
I'll tell you what, I'm honestly dumbfounded with modern skydiving now, where the fuck people come up with the money to go as hard as they go. Because to be a non-sponsored, non-working skydiver, just out hucking it and training and having fun, how do you do that? That shit's expensive, man.
Yeah, dude, bro, I've seen it, right? And I can say I know a few people where they're like burning through fucking some inheritance, or it still comes. There's actually this particular person I met like a couple years ago, and I was like, yo, how the fuck is this person like 30 hours in the tunnel, just traveling to every boogie? And then somebody was like, oh yeah, they got a big inheritance. They're blowing through it. And I was like, oh damn, all right, so there you go.
Oh, that'll catch up eventually.
Yeah, I know. There's usually an answer, you know, like when you see that, right? Yeah.
So the last time we talked, you had a bunch. I think it's been a couple years.
It has, dude. I feel bad. I was actually going to go back and watch our last video to remember, just to know some of the stuff we talked about. But I think it's been at least 2 years. Yeah. It was probably 2 years ago because I haven't raced NASCAR, unfortunately, in almost 2 years. And it was probably like right after one of my last NASCAR races or something.
Well, because the last big event that you had that actually intersected both driving and jumping was you're still the only NASCAR driver in history to skydive into a race.
only professional racing driver in history to skydive
That's
into a race.
fucking cool.
I know, and I say all the time. I mean, I do get upset sometimes because, like, man, it was so hard. It was so much work. It was so crazy to put that stunt together, so to speak. And I spent so much time trying to pull off the jump that I didn't really do enough of the marketing side of things. That I still always say it's like a broken record. I don't think we got the credit we deserved for pulling that off. You know, everybody involved. I fucking jumped out of a helicopter into my own race in Las Vegas during driver introductions for a NASCAR race. And once again, no practice, no qualifying on a 1.5-mile oval where the average is 180 miles an hour. And once again, because the team is a low budget team that doesn't have championship points, we have to start in the back. We have to start dead last. So you're starting 40th on lap 2 after you get so lap 1. I shouldn't even say lap 1. When you come around to take the green flag for lap 1, you're entering turn 1 at $185 up to 190 miles an hour in the draft. And you're in the back, so it's fucking dirty air, traffic. I mean, just like if you're just like a jet wash or prop wash or flying behind somebody and you get dropout. That's the same shit in a race car. You need downforce, you need clean air, and so you're behind 40 cars. The car's loose. There's dirt, dust flying everywhere. So, anyways, I already had a lot stacked against me going into the Vegas race. I've never raced a professional race in my NASCAR or in my hometown on the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Never raced at those kind of speeds on the track. And once again, you have no idea what's going to happen, what the car is going to do or, what it feels like going into turn 1. So I planned this jump. If I can jump out of a helicopter from 5,000 feet, do a, hop and pop. I land next to the driver introduction stage. I go out on the stage. I raised $10,000 for Speedway Children's Charities, donated 10 grand to charity, waved to the crowd. The NASCAR let me explain what I did really fast because people were kind of like, what was that? And I explained really fast my background, my story, and what I just did. And the fans were actually like, well, that's great. The fans loved it. And then I walked to the car. It was boom. You have to line up. It's all very professional. NASCAR makes you line up. You do they do the invocation, the prayer, the national anthem. And it was, okay, get in the car. And you only have about 4 minutes to get your gear on and belts on and fire it up to leave. So from the time my foot left the skid of the helicopter to driver start your engines was like 35 minutes. And then straight to the green flag. And I fucking pulled it off. Started 40th, drove halfway through the field, made it into the top 20 for the day. And then I think we finished just out of the top 20, like 21st or 22nd. We had a bad pit stop and had some tire issues, but still to drive halfway through the field was, for a low budget team, you get, and NASCAR didn't really even, they were just kind of like, Matt Jaskol, yeah, he did a thing and skydived. Anyways, let's talk about Jimmy Johnson's new dog. Sure. He's got a new puppy and we're happy for him. That's NASCAR. Like I don't think anybody really realized what we had just pulled off, and it was, yeah. I
love that in that whole thing that the last thing on your mind in all of that is not dying on a skydive.
Yeah, no, I didn't. Again, it was I'm sick probably a little bit. All I was thinking was, don't fall down, don't fuck up, don't downwind it. I had Jimmy Dolan on the ground who fucking helped me prep everything, dude. We made the helicopter happen together because he knew people, I knew people. So we had the bird and I was nervous. I was nervous. I was scared. I was nervous about not screwing it up. And so I'm telling Jim, I'm like, dude, all right, I need you to pop smoke at this. I need to know the, direction of the wind. So I don't fuck this up. And he's like, I got you. We planned it all out. And it was a sketchy landing because the winds were kind of like shifting back and forth. And
sure.
I had a 150. I wasn't flying like, some Leia or some shit. I wasn't flying a sport. I do have my pro rating. So I did everything legit, had my pro rating, had my 150, but still came in kind of hot, slid it out, boom, stood it up. And that was nice. All but NASCAR, to talk about we had to go through all these crazy, things to get NASCAR to approve it. And it was wild because NASCAR was like, all right, we'll let you do this. And it was because the Las Vegas Motor Speedway helped me set it up. NASCAR goes, all right, we'll let you do this under one stipulation. And we're all just like, what? What is it? That you have a backup driver in case you get injured. NASCAR's hardcore, man. They're like, the show must go on. Just don't get blood on the track. And if you fuck up, your car's got to be in the show. NASCAR all NASCAR cared about was that the car is still going to be in the show.
Something though, I kind of respect that.
Yeah.
I kind of respect that. All right, don't fuck yourself up because the next load is turning.
Yeah, dude, I love it. I couldn't believe NASCAR. I mean, again, I like to think it's because of my background and a little bit of the pedigree and the story, and also NASCAR. Like they were asking questions, and I'm like, listen, you're letting me fucking start a NASCAR race from dead last with no practice, no qualifying, and I've never been on this track. You're letting me do that. Sadly, I am more current with jumping out of a helicopter than I am racing NASCAR. And it
Yeah,
was we delivered that, and NASCAR was like, right, okay, right. I was like, I'm more current. This is not a, and I actually said, I was like, we need to make it clear that this is not a Pastrana like or some like evil Knievel
sure,
stunt. I was like, I am a professional skydiver who has been doing this more sadly lately than racing NASCAR, and this could be a cool thing for
sure.
NASCAR. And NASCAR said, all right, fine, we'll let you do it. Just don't fuck it up. And they
Oh,
said,
that's
and
awesome.
so I named my spotter, who is a badass racing driver himself. He's raced NASCAR for years on and off. Same thing. There's no budget, no money, but he works as a spotter. Talking to you on the radio. He was actually a big help for me. A guy named Stephen Light. He helped me. He was like a coach of mine during the races. So I named him as the backup driver. So if I came in and broke my leg or did something stupid, he would have come down from the spotter's tower and got in the car. And we always joke. I've told the story a million times that there was thousands of. I mean, there's about Xfinity races get pretty good crowd. Like even though the grandstand didn't look full, there was about 50,000 people there. A lot of them are in the campsite areas
Sure.
for those races, and then they're all lingering around in the infield. And then before the start of the race, boom, then the grandstands get kind of full. So, but there was still about I don't know 7, 8, 9,000 people estimated in the grandstand. So there was thousands of people in the stands, thousands and thousands in the infield. And when I landed, you heard the crowd just yeah. And
Sure.
my spotter was the only guy going fuck. He was like, damn it, I'm not racing today.
Oh, it's funny. Well, and
Yeah.
quick shout out too, by the way, to your ground crew, Jim Dolan, who,
Yes,
for
sir.
anybody that doesn't know Jim Dolan, I've done an episode or two with him. I don't know if I done two. I've definitely done one with him, but Jim Dolan's the co guy running the night jumps over the Las Vegas Strip with Sammy
Yes.
Popov. So
Yes.
anybody interested in checking out that particular venture, Jim Dolan is a good person to catch up with.
Jim Dolan is also one of the Flying Elvi.
Yep.
He was the one that got me let me do one of my first. I get to be a part of a very elite club. I got to do a Flying Elvi demo jump years ago, like 2019 or something like that. I think it was before the pandemic. And Jim's been I think Jim was in the plane when I did my very first tandem with Jace. So Jim's been a mentor. Most of my demos have been with Jimmy involved. We did last year, which was amazing. I wasn't racing NASCAR. I didn't have a ride, but we jumped into the Vegas race together for the Cup race just last year on my birthday. So it was October 15th. I jumped the American flag. It was the 1,100 square foot flag, so it was a big honor and exciting for me. I never jumped a flag that big. Jim jumped the Kevin Harvick flag because he retired that year, so they did like a tribute flag. So we got to do that together in October, and that was a freaking that'll go down as one of my favorite jumps ever. My dad was there, my girl was there. It was awesome. And so, and Jimmy and I got to jump together, and we did it out of the badass Maverick helicopter. So yeah, man. And to also a little shout out, Jace Ramsey was also on the ground. And I just wanted him there because it was emotional. I was like, man, I'm racing NASCAR. I'm gonna skydive into the race. So he was there to hang out.
Yeah,
The guy that
man.
taught me how to skydive. It was cool.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I've been jumping with Jim since '96, basically. I took pictures of his first wedding, which is I'm pretty sure why it failed. Uh, because the priest yelled at me in the middle of the wedding for
I didn't
taking
know this.
pictures when I wasn't supposed to. Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't know that. That's awesome.
Jim was like, "Hey, would you take pictures of the wedding?" And it was a Roman Catholic ceremony, and the priest was cool. He went out of his way to show me where I could take pictures from, but he didn't bother to tell me that in a Roman Catholic ceremony there are times when you can't take pictures. So I'm just click, 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 and the priest, I'm not shitting you, Jim will vouch for this, stopped the wedding, turned to me, and chastised me for interfering with his congregation's ability to accept the word of God.
That is epic, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's my buddy Jim.
I didn't know, dude. That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
fucking hilarious. I had no idea.
So with all of that, go first, two questions. One, and I've asked this a few times over the last few podcasts. Do you find yourself talking to people that aren't involved in motorsports or skydiving? Do you find yourself telling some of the stories of the things you've done, looking at them thinking, these people can't be believing a word I'm fucking saying?
Yeah, bro, all the time. Like it's actually, again, it's cool that I've done some of these pretty wild things, but I do try, like when somebody asks, what you've done, some of the things, I'm like, what? And I do say it kind of laughingly, like, well, I did this and I did that. And I say it and I shake my head and I go, yeah, I wouldn't believe it either, So no, there is some people that kind of, but I've met people, they take my business card or whatever, and I tell them some, they ask some stories, and then later they come back around and they're like, whoa, what the fuck? That's
Yeah.
legit, right? Like, yeah, no, I did that. Yeah.
Dude, it's you get the so what blah blah blah, and I find myself thinking, I don't want to answer this question.
Yeah, bro, all the time. So, like, dude, on airplanes, I swear, I've been with family. I've been traveling. I've been like with my girlfriend before, where like somebody will ask, "What do you do?" And I'm like, I'm the heir to the paperclip fortune. I don't do any. Or like, I've
Yep.
said it like one time. I said something pretty stupid. I told somebody, it was you would understand. It was like a certain type of person, that was just like, I didn't want to get into it, and I'm like, I'm a driving instructor, and I leave it at that. And I leave it at that. Oh yeah, I teach teenagers, yeah, kind of like DMV stuff. Yeah, I do that. Oh, that's cool. Like because I don't want to get into,
Yep.
what it is, because people don't believe it, or they will, and then you go down a rabbit hole and you only have 5 minutes. You're just
Yep.
passing through or something.
Yeah. So that, and what's next? So what have you got going on, what's coming up? I mean, I see you all the time. You're so fucking busy all the time.
Yeah, man, just like anybody, I got to pay bills, right? I don't come from money. I help take care of my parents. And so what I do to pay the bills when I'm not, trying to be in a race car is my primary job is working in the automotive industry as a automotive professional. And sometimes, yes, you do get to do some pretty cool work. So all year, again, it has been upsetting, like, it's a tough balance between, to go find money, to raise money takes a lot of time, and it can cost money. It takes a lot of time and effort. I've never been very good at raising money or finding money, unfortunately. But I also need to travel and make a living and pay bills. And like you just said, sometimes, man, I'm on the grind where I'm traveling state to state. So I was working for Ford, and I still am. I leave on Thursday, and I was doing like launching the new Mustang, the new gas-powered Mustang. And it was great. It's not always like this. A lot of times as a pro driver, you're sitting right seat and you're training dealers, you're coaching people. But I've been very lucky this year where I was driving, just giving drift rides, and stuff like that. And it pays pretty good. And again, I'm open, and the whole point of, like, to me, a podcast is to, again, share your story, and people might be curious. So a guy like me, you make about $500, $600, $700 a day, which is great. But it might be a quick weekend.
Sure.
It might be like 3 days of pay, and then you're out and you're home for a week, then you're back to the next gig. So I've been lucky to work for Ford all year, driving the electric Mustang, the Mach-E, driving the regular gas Mustang, just giving rides, hot laps. And then to try to make money and pay bills, you're scheduling, doing private coaching, or you're working in like the Ferrari Challenge Championship, which is for gentleman drivers, and that stuff might pay like $1,000 to $1,500 a day. And then, so that's what I do to try to make a living. I'm hustling, I'm traveling. It's usually all automotive work. I'm skydiving on the side, because that's a good, like, when I'm slow, I go jump in the drop zone, 3-4 days a week. You make some good money as a TI or as outside video, and that kind of fills some gaps for me when I'm not. And then a little side bit. I have a little CBD company that I started years ago. It doesn't make a lot of money, but it's a little side brand, and trying to do some real estate stuff. And so, anyways, I am hustling. I do work in movies. There hasn't been a lot this year, but I just had 2 movies that just came out. So please go check one out. It's called Boneyard with Mel Gibson. It's Mel Gibson and 50 Cent. It's a low budget movie, but it was still, it's based on a true story. And I did my first real stunt stuff. I fell on a table, a little bit of acting, but mostly stunt driving. So I've worked in, I got a decent little IMDb. I've done quite a bit of stunt driving, and I'm trying to focus more on that. Sure. Because it pays good. It pays the bills, right? So I am trying to do more stunt work. It's just, again, it's just like motorsports. It's who getting in with stunt coordinators, stuff like that. But I have done that stuff for years, but I'm just trying to push harder into doing more stunt driving. And, man, again, like you said, what's next? It is I do get a little nervous because I'm going to be 40, and my window realistically of being in a race car full time and making money to be in a race car is closing. Quite honestly, it just is. It's the reality of it. Unless I find a big sponsor, unless I find a bunch of money to pay for me to be in a car, I still honestly have years left in me. Like there's other drivers out there in their 40s winning races.
Sure.
But again, they've been there forever. They got the budget. So what is next is just trying to do more movie work. I'm trying to progress in skydiving, get my numbers up a little bit, because I do want to do some cool stuff, and I still have some plans to try to maybe have another shot at blending skydiving and racing together a little bit to just to share that again and really stamp it, that
Sure.
nobody's ever gonna, not for a very long time is anybody ever gonna pull this off. And so I am trying to be in a race car. I won't give up on it completely, whether it's a sports car deal or, again, I get phone calls to get into a NASCAR quite regularly. My team that I've raced for, they just called me this year to put me in the Cup car in the big show on Sunday. They said, Jaskol, we would love to have you in the car for COTA, which is Circuit of the Americas, the F1 track. So now, they already raced on it, but they called me up for that race knowing that I'm a good shoe for the road courses. It would have been a low budget, the car would have been near the back, but I still had to come up with some budget. It was very little budget. They needed like $5,000. That's nothing. That is nothing to go get in a Cup car.
Sure.
I couldn't even find that money. Like to go try to ask for $5,000 for a low budget car. I tried. So there still is some opportunity for me to get in a race car. There's still a lot left on the table that I want to accomplish. I want to do a couple marquee races. I would like to try to do a few more NASCAR races and maybe get a shot to qualify for the Daytona 500. I feel like it's not that I deserve it. I deserve it for my family and for the people that have supported me to try to even if it's not a winning effort, obviously, just to be in the big show.
Sure.
So that is some stuff that I'm still working on, and isn't unrealistic. It's not out of the front. Like I could go there, and I have the approval from NASCAR. I can go into Cup now. Like, again, you have to have that approval process we talked about. You start at the small track, you got to work your way up to the bigger tracks, and I've done all that. But it just boils down to money. So right now I do have to focus on work. I got behind in bills, chasing the NASCAR dream. I wasn't making a lot. People might think, oh, you're racing NASCAR, you're making a living. No, man, it was a friend that was the sponsor. I was getting paid about $1,500 a race.
Sure.
So just, again, I'm sharing the honesty of it because people might want to know, like,
Sure.
I was racing in NASCAR. I'm making $1,500 a weekend. I would make a little bit more sometimes if I could put some sponsorship on the car to try to pay the bills. My sponsor was paying all of the expenses, and then I'd make a little bit of money on the weekend, $1,500. So I was still getting paid to be in a race car, which is the goal. But then in 2022, I was making even less money, and I was traveling a lot. So I fell behind in bills so 2023 last year was a tough year. We haven't talked in a while. I raced a little bit, but I really was just focused on trying to make money. I was doing a little bit of movie work. I did one trip to Everest. We tried to go skydive in the Mount Everest trip, and skydive didn't happen. But I got to go with my best friends. I hadn't traveled in years since the pandemic, so I saved up some money. Went on the Everest trip last May and got to go to base camp. We talked about that a lot, man. That was emotional, actually. Talked about the trek and everything. It was a very special thing for me, and it was good because I wasn't in the best place not being in a race car.
Sure.
You race NASCAR for 2 years, you're pushing hard, and then boom, 2023, everything dissolved. And now I'm left with just trying to pay bills and travel for work. So pulling the trigger to spend the money to go to Everest and having those conversations with you, and fuck, that was amazing. That really helped me out a lot to be able to do that trip with some of my best friends. And then I just made it through the year like anybody else, was just working, doing some car stuff, did a little bit of movie work. And this year, unfortunately, we're already halfway through the year. It was a bit of the same. No racing, just working and traveling, doing the car work. And then, maybe I'll try to get my ass in a car for 1 or 2 races, and then we'll see what happens in the future here for next year.
Sure. Hey, one last question while I've got an actual fucking automotive professional sitting in front of me. Gas or electric?
Oh, gas, baby. No, for sure. It'll always be gas. I mean, I just did a big podcast about electric. And listen, all political bullshit aside, electric is awesome. It is a great, fun driving platform. I think we're going to end up landing somewhere in the middle with hybrid. I think hybrid's going to be the way to go. I don't like, as an automotive professional, I don't like the push for electric. Is it good? Are they good cars? They're great to drive. Are they realistic right now for the infrastructure and what it takes to build these things, the materials, the mining, the batteries? I mean, dude, I know the numbers. You have to drive a Mach E like 500,000 miles to become net carbon zero for what it is. As far as the driving, they are awesome. I desperately want a Mach E electric Mustang. Do I think we need to make this gnarly push that everybody's got to go electric? No, I don't believe in that. Do we need to offer the options so that we balance it out and that we have the options for, for less carbon emissions? 100%. I think it's amazing that we have the option. I just don't agree with the push. But again, all the political, nature, whatever you believe in aside, the pure driving of an EV is fucking rad, to be honest. It is exciting as shit. I'm a race car driver, instant power. It makes me giggle and laugh all day when I'm driving the Mach E. I absolutely love them. But then, again, talking about automotive, I think that hybrid is going to be the future. I mean, it already is the future. Formula One is running hybrid.
Sure.
IndyCar just entered their hybrid era for the first time. IndyCar now has hybrid. NASCAR just fucking launched an electric NASCAR as a demo. Yeah, dude, it's all over the internet. They did it in Chicago on the road course this last weekend. So they're not going to ever go full electric, I don't think, but they're kind of like getting people ready. NASCAR, the big old American V8 burning fuel, I guarantee you that within this decade we'll start going hybrid. And I'm okay. I'm here for that. I'm on board with it.
It's funny saying all of that. I can picture F1 electric. I can picture almost every other motorsport electric. I can't picture fucking NASCAR electric because
I hope it doesn't go electric. I mean, we got to keep some Americana and
yeah, man, because I don't see NASCAR. I hear it. I like that sound of the cars going past is just ingrained in me. The F1 is already so high pitched and that I can already picture that being electric, but NASCAR, no.
Dude, so I again, my stomach sank. So I'll send you the link when we're done. So they unveiled their concept electric NASCAR. And I mean, it was rad. It was like 1,000 horsepower. I think, lighting up the tires, but again, I don't see NASCAR doing that anytime in the future, but I think people will still be shocked to see NASCAR go hybrid. I think they're going to have to, rather than big old V8s. It'll just like the fucking Ford Raptor has a V6 turbocharged motor that's more powerful than the V8. It's
sure.
Like, so do I still love NASCAR V8 stuff? Of course. What really draws me in and what actually disappoints me about Formula One, genuinely makes me sad, is the noise. Formula One used to just be the most incredible, out of this world, alien-like sound that you just couldn't. It was like trying to explain what is a skydive. Try to go explain what a Formula One sound was. No, you had to go experience it. So I don't like the way Formula One sounds. It's absolutely terrible to me. The racing is great. The technology is still there, but the sound is really lacking. So I think I don't think NASCAR is going to do it anytime soon. But the fact that they launched a concept electric car shows you that they're thinking of the future.
Sure.
And I think hybrid is for sure around the corner. But hopefully I'm like, I just say this too. Like, if you're going to do hybrid, just please fucking make it sound good. Like you just said, it's this. Just don't get away. Make it sound good, please.
Got to have that rumble.
Yeah,
now,
man.
As we wrap up, give people your social so they know how to find you in Vegas if they want to come make a tandem skydive, they want to keep up with your driving career, all that shit. How do they find Matt Jaskol?
Yeah, if you're ever in Vegas, please, I'd love to take it for a skydive, even if it's not me personally, help you out. Matt Jaskol, so the name, that's it. That's my social. So MattJaskol, like you see here. And that's on Instagram and Facebook, where I'm mostly on, and a little bit of YouTube. But yeah, reach out to me anytime, man. Especially if there's any skydivers watching this. You got any questions? The biggest question I get in life is, how do I get into motorsports? I usually tell people, don't do it. Not to do it. You got to have a lot of money. But yeah, man, if anybody's watching this and wants to reach out for any reason, feel free.
Dude, Matt, as always, fantastic to catch up. I seem to be famous for taking way too long in between catch-ups with people. So we'll try and do it more often. But as always, it's great to hear from you. I'm glad everything is just cranking and that you've got at least a drive to keep going. And I'm thrilled to see where it goes.
Yeah, dude. I appreciate you having me. Honestly, man, like, thank you for always letting me share my story. And I love you, man. And honestly, like, haven't talked to you in a long time. I haven't talked about some of the things that you just brought out. Like I'm very open and honest, and even if hardly anybody ever were to watch it, it helps me to share the story and kind of, it's like therapy, man. You're you know this. You're a therapist. I'm sitting on the couch, and so I appreciate you doing what you do, man.
Well, if I'm a therapist, I'm the worst fucking paid therapist on the planet. But
Sipping your wine.
but I will take that as a compliment. Yeah, I'll keep drinking the wine, and it's all good. But I love you,
Awesome,
brother.
man. All right, dude. Thanks, man. See ya.
Well, there you have it. Another episode of the Lunatic Fringe podcast, brought to you as always by, well, wait, not as always, actually. Brought to you now by Gyro. Formerly known as NZ Aerosports, you'll head to gyro.com for their next level line of canopies. By Pussfoot, the Extreme Sports Collective. Head over to pussfoot.com to check it out. By Summit Parachute Systems, check out summitparachutesystems.com to talk to Jarrett Martin and the gang about kick-ass pilot rigs, rigging courses, and more. By Flyaway Indoor Skydiving, go to flyawaytn.com and check out all the cutting-edge stuff to come. By Pure Spectrum CBD, head to purespectrumcbd.com to check out their wide range of CBD products. And as for us, head to the lunaticfringepodcast.com to listen to any of the hundreds of episodes currently available. Hit the link for our YouTube channel, pick up your copy of the Lunatic Fringe book or The Accidental Stripper, and get a sneak peek at upcoming guests. Once again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.